So, Canucks fans, how we doing today? Because that was not an ideal weekend for this team. The Vancouver Canucks trade JT Miller. They get a few things back, not enough things back, but they use one of those things to go out and get Marcus Pettersson. The problem is, the thing that they used was the most valuable thing that they got back, and it makes the whole thing look like a disaster. Why does it look like a disaster, you say? Well, that's simple, Internet, because it is a disaster. This is the results of mismanaging a situation and mismanaging your locker room and letting it fester out of control and feeding into it by having all the conversations in the media and all the conversations in all these different places and just letting it spiral out of control. You can't do that. You simply cannot do that. The Canucks mishandled this entire situation. And so when we are looking at, okay, well, they got the best they could get out of the JT Miller thing. They got the best they could get and made the best out of a situation that was entirely their own doing. So that is why I'm not like, okay, well, Vancouver got the best that they can get. So let's walk through this slow build of a crescendo of awfulness from the Vancouver Canucks. Because of this whole situation, JT Miller's value got lower and lower and lower, so you don't get enough for him. It ended up being the classic addition by subtraction, and maybe just getting him out of town is enough that it makes it worth it to make this particular trade, which I guess you got to that point where it had to be done. They didn't get enough for him. Even with the value being that low, I don't know if they got enough for him. And then the Rantanen trade really threw that off. I will say, Filip Chytil is an interesting player. And if it was just this move, like I said, if it was just this move, I don't think it's enough. And I think it's a loss for the Canucks. But I do think that just getting Miller out of town is enough. I want that guy nowhere near my team. I know a lot of people are picking sides, and a lot that I'm seeing on X, maybe it's just the louder voices, but a lot that I'm seeing aren't necessarily on the one I'm on, where I want Pettersson long-term, not JT Miller. That is the wagon I'm going to hitch to. And so, that is where you can kind of whatever. And you see that trade, it's not great, but Chytil is interesting, at least. I think that he is a good player, and I think he is going to progress to be a quite good player. The problem is, he's not good enough right now to fill the void of Miller at his peak, and this team's looking to compete now. And so it puts him in a bad spot, because they're looking to compete now. He is the one who is being brought in as the compete now piece, and so he has to not only fill the void of Miller, but now, if Besser leaves, and if in a couple years Hughes leaves, and Demko wants to go, a lot of it is going to be placed wrongly, but a lot of the blame could be placed on Chytil because he's the replacement. And so he is the one who is left here because Miller's not here. And so we're going to get mad at that guy. And that's going to be the thing. So it puts the kid in a really, really bad spot. And it puts a lot of pressure on him to not only be good, just so that you can fix this team this year and try to get them into a playoff spot, but also you have to be good enough that you can keep the core together, which it shouldn't be on him, but a lot of people are going to put it on him. So it puts him in a really, really, really bad spot. Again, the only win here was going to be just separating from the major headache and hope that it gets everyone in a good spot moving forward. And then they get the first. And you were seeing people tweeting like, hey, it's not great. But the real part of this trade is going to be what they move that first for and see if you can kind of recoup a little bit of that. And so we're like, yes, that's going to be something they can reset and they can, what's that? They're making a trade now for that first. All right, let's buckle up. And it's Marcus Pettersson, which is just not enough. That is the part of this that ends up being the absolute 100% killer for me in this whole deal. And toxic. The JT Miller trade makes the Flames trade with Philly look even better. I do have a thought on that. We'll get to the Flames part in all of this in a little bit. But, it is, you get the extra first in the Miller deal, and that's where a lot of that value is. And so now this is part of the trade tree that you are getting. And Marcus Pettersson, it's a wild overpay in my estimation. Pettersson doesn't put up a ton of points, and his possession numbers are at best, right? If he is above 50% possession, it is just. And if he is below 50% possession, it is just. He is just kind of hovering in all of those spots. And so, there is a value to him. For sure there is. He is a fine player. And a lot of what I'm saying in this whole little rant here is going to make it seem like I think he sucks. I don't think he sucks. I just don't think that if I'm the Canucks, I am using one of the... I came into a trade chip here I am now using one of those trade chips to lock into that guy. Like that using that piece, I think had to be one of the last bullets you had in the chamber. And to fire it on that shot just seems like a mistake to me. And so now, to compound it, we're talking about, from the sounds of it, a major extension for him as well. And the Canucks love nothing more than to make one mistake, three mistakes very, very quickly with contracts that they hand out. So I think you are really, and I understand the city I'm talking from, Calgary, you're really locking yourself into mid with this type of a move. Like, I think if you were going to move Miller, fine. You have to get that back. Or you have to get something back for that. But now the pick that you have, that has to be the part where, okay, yes, we only got whatever for Miller, but we traded that, and we were able to bring in a few other things, and that is what really launches us. And Pettersson just isn't that piece, isn't that missing thing for the Vancouver Canucks. So it is a whole awful situation that they handled poorly at every turn. They then predictably got very little out of it, and then the cherry on top is that they made everything worse with the moves they made after. So it is just every point along the way, they handled this dreadfully. And it's rough. The whole situation is a loss for Vancouver from an asset management standpoint, and then they doubled down on it and made it a lot worse. I do want to say the other team in this, the Penguins, they get a bit of cap flexibility back, so that I think helps a little bit. They are, someone pointed this out, they're building up their organizational depth actually quite well. It's not helping at the NHL level, which is where everyone's focused right now because Crosby is Crosby and time is ticking a little bit on that one, right? So, but they are kind of set up in a way that maybe a run comes at some point in the next couple of years. Not like a fantastic run, but just enough depth that they can start to be competitive again. But they to get a first out of that situation and a few other pieces is quite impressive, actually. So good on them for what they were able to do with that one.